Today, we are honored to have Eric Whipp and Lynette Duensing, who are going to ask each other some very difficult questions. Welcome, Lynette. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks.
Hello, hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. You know what? I'm just pretending that I'm sitting in a bar in Vegas right now, and
That's the right attitude.
And that we're just sitting in a little lounge and having a chat.
Eric, we're all pretending we're in a bar in Vegas right now.
Yeah, I know. I guess they've been doing that for about 12 months, but
that is the name of the game.
I'm pretending that I'm in my theater in Hollywood right now, but I'm really at my house.
Close enough. Well, I mean, it's funny. It's been quite informative so far. I've been enjoying listening to all the different little sections, but they've all been kind of technical. And I think what's fun about our little segment is we don't have to be that technical at all. We can just be chatting about stuff and grading.
Well, I had a chance to talk to you a few weeks ago, which was lovely, and to hear all about your life as a colorist and how much we have in common in the fact that we started off as film colorists and then transitioned into the digital intermediate world with digital imaging and all of that. And can I start with a question for you?
Sure.
Because you've had such a varied background, you've done so many different things. You work on commercials now in Toronto, but before that, you were working a lot internationally. You were back in Australia working on, blockbusters like Mad Max Fury Road and Happy Feet and all of that. So what's your favorite kind of work to do?
It is a hard question. You know, I do like a bit of both. I love commercials because it's so varied and it's over and done with generally in a day or two. And sometimes that's a really good thing. But I do love getting really into a feature and getting into the storytelling. And even though sometimes some of these features like Mad Max was about 18 months long, it was the long haul on a film. And so you really get, I mean, it wasn't full time every day for 18 months, but you're thinking about it nonstop for over a year and it just keeps going. So I don't know, I enjoy both. I really do enjoy both. It's interesting. A few people have asked me about the grading animation versus long form versus live action. And I don't know. It's funny. I love doing animation, but I hate it at the same time. And you probably have very similar experiences because you grade a lot of animated trailers and stuff as well. And animated films, they look like they're easy. And a lot of people, even myself, when I first did Happy Feet back in, I think it was 2006 or something, I thought I saw some of the shots coming straight out of the compositing room, and I thought, it looks pretty good. What do I need to do? You know. And you start looking, oh, okay, maybe a little balance here and there. And then it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then you're diving into map channels for every eyeball. You realize that animated films become sometimes the most complicated grading stacks you've ever done. I think on Happy Feet 2, I don't think we had a shot less than like 45 layers. And it's crazy. And then sometimes it's nice in live action, when you can just do it a really nice balance and you go, you know what, I think I'm good with this shot. It's great. What do you think about that?
Well, working with the animators, you're working with people who are extremely, extremely close to the project and very meticulous. And so if you, like I've been working on with the Animal Logic folks down in Sydney, I have maybe 45 embedded mats in my EXR media. And so they do expect, now in the case, I have the creative executives at Sony who are working on this with us, and they are going to be very, very particular about what it is that they want to do and how they think that everything should look. And you really have to be a very patient, meticulous person and work on every little detail, whether it's a highlight in an eye or whiskers on a rabbit or whatever it is that you're doing. But for me, it's kind of, I like doing it because I get to work in ACEs all the time. for all the animated work that I do. And that is a very, very helpful thing. I don't know how many people out there work in ACEs on your projects, but it just really takes a lot of the guesswork out of the intention in regard to doing animation. So once I get the show let, I really am in a really good zone, a very good beginning spot. And then I can go through it with the creatives and kind of refine it. But for me, I do most of the Sony Pictures animation work maybe a year before it even goes to the DI for the final feature grade.
Right,
So
that was one of the questions I really wanted to ask you, because you're in a very unusual situation there, where you are putting looks on a film before even the colorist on the film has even put a look on the film. And like, how does that work? Like, who are you normally working with to create these looks and come up with these ideas for the trailer? Because obviously, I mean, we all know, I think everybody knows that sometimes trailers are very similar to the way the film comes out, and sometimes they're wildly different. They'll like, this shot, it doesn't matter, we're dumping the shot later, or it's changing, or it's actually from a different scene, but we're going to grade it like it's in this other scene, or things change a lot in trailers. But generally, I find a look that's happening in the trailer, there's something about it that stays with the film.
Right. Well, many times, I mean, for us doing trailers, it's a lot of different things. Sometimes the DI colorist will do the grade and I have to match it back because I'm doing all the versions. Sometimes I get the trailer a year before it's even going to go to DI, like happened with Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So we were already working on that with the animators. So that can be a very, very difficult thing. In some cases, you get no direction at all. And you have, let's say, a show let, and you're sitting with creative executives from the studio, which have nothing to do with the filmmaker or the filmmaker's vision at that time. So it's kind of all over the place. Now, in the case of Greyhound, which we worked on, then I have the director of photography in the room with me. If he's on set, he sends me stills. And then when he's able to come in, we did the grade, and then it ended up, maybe a month or two later going to the DI. So it's kind of, you have to just be able to adapt to anything. Hopefully you get a show let. Sometimes you get one, sometimes you don't. And the creative execs will drive that for us. And that's the way it works. But the best thing, I mean, for me is like in working with the animators on something like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, is that you're helping them. There's still, some of the stuff is still animatics, and you're helping them figure out what it is it needs to look like with their final animation for the DI. So
right, that's pretty cool.
So then, okay, I've got a big question for you. And since we're talking about visual effects, the thing is like with Mad Max Fury Road, you know, that was just a lot of visual effects. Every shot probably almost in the entire film.
Yeah, it's funny. They market it as a non-visual effects film. It was all real stunts, but there were over 2,500 visual effect shots in that movie.
Right. So how much of that are you building? Are you doing sky replacements, or are they giving you mats on everything, or how does that work?
A funny story. So when I first started working on the film, I got a handful of scenes to start experimenting with looks and started developing looks and stuff. And one thing I noticed was that it was a little bit all over the place in terms of, and it's by no one else's fault other than the weather. Like in Namibia where they shot, it would just be like this white, hazy morning, like the mist came in from the ocean and just sort of everything was gray basically. And then by the end of the day, it would all clear away and it would be blue skies, or it'd have clouds or something. And then you have cars driving in the desert that kick up all this dust and everything. And so when you watch an edit for the first time, it's just like dusty, blue sky, gray sky, dusty, blue. It's just all over the place, right? Because it's just because of the nature of it, really. So I had this one shot And I didn't have many shots. I had like, 10 or 15 shots to experiment just to get some looks going. And this one shot was really gray, one of those gray skies. There was almost nothing else in the shot, but just like sandy desert and a couple of cars driving towards camera. And that was it. And I was like, okay, what can I do with this? I'm experimenting with different looks and stuff. And the sky was just driving me insane. It was just awful. It just looked terrible. And I was like, I got to try and get something in the sky. I got to get some blue or something, but I couldn't really, when you key a white sky and you bring it, and it just looks like someone colored it with blue color. It doesn't look real. And it looks like a bad 1980s music video. That's what it looked like. And I just couldn't work out how to get this looking good. And so I got to the point where I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a sky replacement. And so I managed to get a really good key, but I could not track it. There was nothing in the horizon to track. There was nothing that, it was a moving car camera, like there was just dust and dirt. And it was just like, I don't know how I'm going to track this. I tried tracking that shot about 37 times. And then eventually I was like, okay, mental note, don't offer up sky replacements on this movie because it's going to be way too hard. Anyway, cut to, a month later and I'm in a different scene and there's the same problem. I've got crappy skies and I'm like, all right, maybe I can sneak one sky replacement in. So I did one, and then it was easy enough to track for that shot. And I was like, okay, that's great. And of course, George Miller, the director, saw it and was like, oh, that's amazing. Can we put another one in? And then I opened the floodgates, and by the time I finished that film, I think I must have done over 800 sky replacements in that movie. And the funny thing is I finally, I don't know, 6 months into the movie, I finally got to the scene that had that shot in it that I struggled with when I was developing the look. But because in the edit, it's now only 2 seconds long instead of this 8-second long thing that I was trying to track, it took me another 38 tracking attempts, but I managed to get that one tracked. And I was like, oh, okay, there we go. We're done. Move on.
Well, that kind of speaks to the evolution of VFX, which is something that I wanted to ask you, because you have a career where, you've been doing this quite a while, and visual effects have changed for us from the very beginning. I mean, and our ability to work and do some of these things on our own in the suite, or when is it appropriate to call up to the visual effects department and say, I need a mat for this. And I know you're on Baselight, and I think that's a really fabulous tool for doing visual effects in the grading suite. What do you think about that evolution?
Yeah, I love it. Like I said, a lot of people are very shy of that. And I know there's a lot of colorists out there who are very traditional kind of thought mentality. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. But personally, I love it when there's new technology, new tools, or something else I can use to make the picture better. So I always look forward to it. And I wish there was even more sometimes, I wish I could just do this. And I remember even I was lucky enough to work pretty closely with Baselight. And when we finished Mad Max, I had a good, hour-long conversation with the developers. And I basically said to them, these are the things I couldn't do on this movie that were a problem. Like, there were things we had to go to Mystica for because we couldn't do time warps. And there were things we had to go to other software to do and stuff like that. That was frustrating at the time. And then they've since developed a lot of these things in Baselight, which is great. So, but I think technology is good. Like the fact that you can craft a shot by changing a sky, or you can add a lens flare, or you can add some flicker or some blur or something that you might really make the difference in a shot, I think is great. And we should always be looking for all those tools. It's come a long way from the early days where you had, actually that's a question for you I want to ask too, because we had very similar we started with very similar gear. I think I started on a Ranks Intel Mark II, I think, or Mark III. I can't remember what it was called. So long ago now, and it was a terrible machine. But I think you started very similar, the same kind of machine. But you even, what did you start on again? I can't. There was some other device I've never even heard of.
Right. Well, okay. I went through all of the Cintel products probably, and then all of the Bosch, the FDL 60, the FDL 90, the Quadra, the Spirit. I was the beta test site colorist on the Spirit for North America. So I kind of started with that. And then
I love the Spirit.
And then all the grading incarnations. I don't know how many people out there can remember the Arcus, which was the color grading device that was part of the Cintel product line, and Dubner, and then all of the Da Vinci products. And then my first DI platform was Spacelight. And I've now just actually recently come off of Luster. I've been on Luster for the last 4 years in our kind of Autodesk centric space that we have at Instinctual, but I'm also a Resolve colorist. I've worked on that since the beginning of the inception of that product as well. So you kind of, when you when you work in a number of facilities, and we haven't even talked about working in different parts of the world yet, but
yeah, well, you just
have to do what you got to do and work on what they've got.
Yeah, so you have worked all over the world in different places. How does that differ? How do different markets actually differ? Like, do you find the way you grade has to be different, or the way you interpret people, or do you find it different?
Well, I think, and this is something that Warren and Jeff and I talked about yesterday, and that's about the fact that a really huge part of what we do as colorists is how we manage clients and how we manage the room and how we speak to people and the managing expectations. Now, I haven't worked a lot of different places in the world, but different markets. I worked in Shanghai, China, and Chicago, and Los Angeles, and Detroit. And the clients are different in each of those places, and their expectations are different, and their tastes are different too. In the case of Shanghai, if I could just make one very, very obvious recollection, and that's about beauty and what is considered beautiful. And I did a lot of L'Oreal commercials while I was there, and how a woman is seen as beautiful is different there than it is in my market, the market I had worked in Chicago. Skin is very luminescent, very, very light and airy, and there is very little color. And that is what is the aesthetic that you have to adjust to. Whereas I was doing a lot of beer commercials and a lot of tough guys with big trucks and mud and beer pours and, very, very different.
Lots of tans, so, very tan.
A lot of tan. I can tell you that, and working in California too, the aesthetic with working in California and a warmer tone as opposed to being on the East Coast and things are cooler. And this is my feeling. And just different places have a different aesthetic, and you have to be able to adapt to that and to be able to read the room and be able to manage people who are in a very different cultural, aesthetic. And
you mentioned something. Yeah. You mentioned something then that was very interesting when you talked about a lot of what we do is working a room, and I think that gets lost a lot. I know with a lot of younger colorists who are coming up, they're all about the technical. What can I do? What LUT do I use? How do I do it? And it's all very technical. I still believe, I don't know the exact numbers, I always make these up, but I always say it's like, 70 to 80% of the job is working that room. And the other 20% is actually the technical work that you're doing. And maybe it's not that exactly those percentages, but I like that idea. And I think when we were talking before, we had a similar kind of experience. And the one thing that I think is interesting, which is a tip I always try and give young colorists, is narrate what you're doing. Like, actually narrate it and talk out loud. Because if you've ever sat in a room when you're not the colorist, like I've done it only a handful of times where I've had to sit in another colorist room and you're just sitting there and you want to get on the machine because you know it, but you're just sitting there. And then you're like, what's happening? What's he doing? What are they doing? And they're just, the picture's rewinding, it's going back. I see it go slightly blue, and you're like, okay, what's happening, right? It's frustrating when you're sitting there. So I learned early on that you have to narrate. You have to go, what about a little bit more blue? Here's where it was. Here's where it is. What do you think? And just keep talking. What do you think?
Well,
about
it's
that?
also about the vernacular too that you use, because what somebody calls one thing is something different to you about what is more contrast, what is less contrast, what is lifting the blacks or the whites, or what does that mean to somebody who's sitting in the room, and being able to communicate with them and to speak on the same page. And it is all about how it is that we get along and foster these relationships, and how, you know, we're able to talk to one another and to be able to interpret, you know, the creative vision of the client, or to be able to add something to that, and also to be able to very tactfully say, you know, I think that that's a great idea, but what do you think if we looked at it this way or that way? And to be able to make suggestions, and to be able to, well, like you say, sitting in a room with another colorist, and how is it that you communicate to them without saying, oh my God, will you just, you know, do this, that, or the other thing? It's just
pull your finger out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's very interesting. How do you find, because we talked about this before, when you're in a situation where you have kind of almost multiple leaders, or whatever you want to call it, I can't think of the word, but the multiple people who are making a decision and they have differing opinions. How do you handle, I mean, a quick backstory there. I was in a session when I first started where I had some clients that came in from Asia, and they had an interpreter, and everything had to go through the interpreter, and they started arguing about whether they wanted the shot warmer or cooler. I didn't know what they were saying because they were just talking away to each other. And so they got to the point where the two creators were having a fight in my room. That was like a very confusing session to try and manage. How do you deal with that? How do you know who to listen to?
Right. Well, that's the thing. In doing commercials, everybody who's out there can identify with this. If you're working in a commercial world, you've got probably a number of creatives in the room at the same time, and an executive producer and all of that. Whereas, like, if you're in a feature film, you're mostly just listening to the DP or the director. But it is what you have to do, of course, is just to see who's paying the bill. The guy in the back who just doesn't say very much and just says one thing, or a woman, and just be as tactful as possible, because that happens constantly, especially in the commercial world, where you've got people who start to disagree, and you're trying to be able to interpret one vision, and there are many voices in the room speaking. And in that case, sometimes I will put in memories a number of different looks based on what it is that they're talking about, and then be able to go and to show all of those different possibilities based on the feedback that's being given in the room at that time. And then let them duke it out, I guess, after that. But for the most part, you just kind of just say, you know, that sounds like a great idea. Let's look at this. That sounds like a great idea. Let's look at that. And then look at all of the different options. And then generally the person who is the most senior in the room will probably say, I think we should do this, or I think we should do that. But of course, we always have to be really tactful about it, and, you know, try not to take sides.
Yeah. So one other thing I just wanted, I know we're probably running out of time, but a couple of things that I find interesting is, how do you find approach to mentoring and training and teaching?
Well, it's just one of the most important things. It's a big deal for me. I'm a mentor for the HPA, for young entertainment professionals. And it's one of the biggest things that I have is as far as an initiative in my career that I think is so important. I've been doing this for a long time, for about 30 years, and I've had many assistants. And being able to be a patient and generous person with knowledge, I think is absolutely one of the most important things that we can do. Not just, just to help the room that you're working in, because you're building a competent, confident person, but just to know that that person is going to be able to be a colorist in the future and be able to have a career and contribute to our craft. I think it's extremely, extremely important. And I think that just in life in general, the more you give, the more you receive, just as a generous person. And I think that we shouldn't be afraid or insecure to share the knowledge that we have. And those people that I've mentored have reverse mentored me as well. I've learned so much from them. And so,
I'm a big believer.
What do you think?
I'm a big believer in that. Like, I love the idea of I'm not one of these people. I've worked with people in the past that guard their secrets, and this is my look and I'm not telling anyone how I did it and all that kind of stuff. I'm not into that. I'd rather, if I found something that's cool, it's not going to work for every job, but it is cool, so I'll share that, and why not? Let's and we try and do that, at our company at Alter Ego. We try, and it's a bit hard right now during a pandemic, but when we're actually all in the office, we would all meet up and have a look at this look and have a look at that, and try and help each other out like that. I think it's really important to keep that training alive. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I learn things all the time from how did you do that? Oh, I didn't even know what that tool was. I never looked at it. or vice versa. That's
right. Well, just having these kinds, the Zoom meetings and whatever, has been really super helpful. All the educational opportunities that are out there right now are so important because we can't be in the same room together all the time. And so, yeah.
Yep. How much time do we have? Do I have time?
We're having that back end discussion. It's such great information. We hate to slow it down. We would hate to stop it. We have to, just to keep our schedule with some level of integrity.
I realize, yeah.
But we're inviting you in. I think you both know about this, that we're going to have some social breakout rooms in a half hour. And we're inviting the both of you to just take some questions in the breakout room. For those of you who've never been involved with Zoom this way, we're going to, a little bit later, going to have a breakout room button. And Eric and Lynette, who, by the way, you both were amazing. You're both right. Forget all the technical crap I did. The handling the room, that's where the real talent lies. They're going to be present with us. And if you would like to, hear them talk a little bit more, or maybe the two of you will be gracious enough to answer some questions from some of the people in the breakout rooms.
No, we don't. I don't answer questions.
No, we only share
of course,
when we want to.
You guys are great. You're great. You're embarrassed. Do you see me turn into good color red? That's fantastic. In the meantime, though, I want to do a giveaway. We've got some Dolby prices. We got 2 seats of training. And for those of you out there, the way we can give a hand in Zoom is we just kind of go like this to just give a hand to both of our speakers, if you would. And if for both of you, if you're not familiar with this, in the gallery view, you'll now see everybody holding up their hands going like this, which is just such a beautiful moment. And I'm going to put up behind me the Slido item.
Jeff.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Warren.
The fabulous Dolby prizes are going out in the big movie quiz. So we're not, the big movie quiz.
So
they're not going as a, they're not a separate thing here. So Tom's going to do his thing. Hey, Tom, how are you, buddy?
Hey, Warren, how you guys doing?
I'm really good. Thanks for coming down. Thanks for getting involved.
Yeah, super excited to hear. What a great talk that was. I really, really enjoyed hearing that. That was fantastic. And Ian's here with us on the chat as well. So Let me know if you can see my keynote. Sorry, that's maybe not working. Let me just see.
Hello, Ian. How are you? Cheers. Has anyone got? I've actually got a beer. What people are drinking? Put it in the chat if you've got your drink up. It is a mixer after all. We can see that now, Tom.
Okay, great.
I'm good, Warren. How about you?
Really good, buddy. Thanks.
Cool. So if you guys don't know us, Tom and Ian, Ian's based in London. I'm based in Los Angeles, and we're responsible for kind of enabling the Dolby Vision ecosystem, obviously mostly in post-production. We also help our studio partners. So if you want to reach out to us about a license or anything, our email addresses are here. I've just got a few quick updates, and Warren, Kevin, Jeff, jump in if you have any comments. Love to hear them. The first thing is we've since chatted with you in December. We've now launched the individual training and certification program. So we've completely shifted over from the facility program, and Ian will paste the link into the chat for you as well. But just a quick overview of what those are. We have a free self-guided online training now that allows you to go at your own pace, and you can essentially, take your time. It does have little modules and, built-in quizzes that you can do. And so that's a really good free option. And then we have launched what we call the paid online live training. And that's with a Dolby instructor. So we have 3 different instructors for English, Spanish, Chinese. And so there's one based in Europe, one based in Los Angeles, and one based in Mexico. So it's focused pretty much on Resolve. It's spread over 3 days, so usually about 2.5 hours per day. And, the question we get a lot, is it only for colorists? And the answer is no, it's not. It can also be for engineers, mastering packaging, QC people as well. So that's $400. And if you don't have a Dolby Vision license, we can provide you a temp license for the class. And then as a follow-up to the training, we also offer an individual certification. And if you buy it together as a bundle, it's $600 total. So $200, it's basically discounted $50. If you do the free self-guided training and you want to purchase the certification separately, then it's $250. And basically, the certification is a test. It's a 2-part test. One is the online multiple choice, which is basically 20 questions, and you got to get a score of 85% or higher to pass. And then you download a practical test, which is basically already a graded HDR file, and you add the Dolby Vision metadata trims, and you basically submit an IMF package back to Dolby for evaluation. So we've been doing this now for a couple months. We've had a lot of great feedback on the program. It's available to sign up. You can go to this webpage to find out a little bit more, and then it takes you to the Dolby Professional store to actually purchase. And we're giving away today 2 of those seats, so you can have the live online training and the matching certification test as well.
I just put into the chat that URL. And just so we know, does that URL also cover that free self-guided training?
Yes, there's a link into that as well. Exactly. So once you pass the test, you can use the Dolby Vision Certified Professional logo on your website. And we don't have it launched yet, but we will have a profile that will be posted on Dolby's website, similar to how we have the Dolby Vision facility link now. There will be individuals posted. A couple other just quick things. We did a webinar recently, about a week and a half ago, of creating Dolby Vision for the Netflix movie Mank. And it's a great interview with the DP, the colorist, and the post-producer. And they talk about their experience working with David Fincher and creating this amazing black and white feature. And I just pulled one quote from the DP that I think is really pretty cool, where he talks about, how Dolby Vision gives him a sense of comfort in that people are looking at his image in the way that they intended. And even on, lesser capable TVs than say the LG OLEDs that he's recommending. So really cool webinar. If you haven't seen it, check that out. And then also interesting for this group, we just published as of yesterday, I believe, the results of the Dolby Vision derived SDR survey. And it's on YouTube. So if you just do a search for Dolby Vision derived SDR, you'll find it. And it basically dives into an experiment that we did where we were comparing an original hand-graded manual SDR versus a derived Dolby Vision SDR. And we surveyed about 550 people in 9 different cities. And we did these in-person things. And it kind of talks about the methodology behind that. And then it also goes into some more organic results where colorists already had an existing SDR grade. And then they did the Dolby Vision process and they compared some of the things they were able to achieve in the Dolby Vision grade in terms of highlight detail or shadow detail, color mapping, saturation, things like that. So kind of an interesting little follow-up piece. Again, if you're into that topic, it's a very short presentation. We presented it at the HPA Tech Retreat this year, and there was a lot of great feedback from it. So that's it from us. And I don't know if we're going into a chat room or something. Warren, is that on the ticket?
Coming up after this next big quiz, there will be a chat room, yes. So
Okay.
About 20 minutes, probably.
Okay.
Depends how long this quiz could take.
Okay.
But thanks, Tom. Great stuff, mate. A lot of people have been asking for individual certification. So I think it's a really cool move by you guys. And if anyone does go along, and Abby's really great. If you're taking the class with Abby, he's good fun.
He's good, yeah.
Thanks.
And then we have
Thanks,
Michael in Europe. Yep, exactly.
Yeah, good. Excellent.